Welcome to The Experience, live with Russ and Scott. Join us every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Learn more about the Experience community at our website, local.theexperience.video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Experience is brought to you each week by these great sponsors. Kelly Capital is your local insurance agent in and around Monmouth, Oregon. Contact her for personal, business, and farm insurance, and talk to Kelly about financial planning. Give her a call at 503-375-2679. Haugen's Gallery Portrait Studio. Call Miriam at 503-838-5416 or visit online at haugensgallery.com. Ironhead Roofing, veteran-owned and the most trusted roofing company in Oregon. Contact them for a quote today for residential or commercial roofing. 541-209-0547, online at ironheadroofing.com. The Aspects of Aging weekly talk show with Christine A. Smith. Unscripted conversations with experts. Watch live or replays at agingbetternetwork.com. And now let's get on with the show.
Hey, let's get on with the show. Good morning, Scott. Welcome, everybody, to The Experience Live with Russ and Scott. We are here every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time or 9 a.m. Texas Standard Time. And, Scott, always a pleasure to be with you, my friend.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. We get to start our Wednesdays with Shri over on Instagram Live as we go backstage. And we're all kind of getting breakfast going and kind of getting wound up for our guest today here on the show, Bob Burg, the Go-Giver. I just encourage people, take the opportunity, ask questions. It's not often you get a chance to talk to a world-renowned author, but you get to do it right here on The Experience, where we have the most remarkable people on the planet.
Well, I completely agree with that. We do have the most remarkable guests, and we're so blessed with amazing friends like Bob that are willing to come in and share such great value with all of you. You know, the experience of life is up to you, everybody. Are you going to be a go-giver? Are you going to reach out and bless other people, or are you going to isolate yourself and keep to yourself and do something different? So, that is your choice. So today we want to talk about good choices, good experiences, and Bob is going to help us with that. But before we get there, I just want to remind everybody that we are here every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 9 a.m. Texas Standard Time on The Experience Live with Russ and Scott, where we have the most amazing guests, like Scott said. For more information on us, you can go to local.theexperience.video. That will give you information on Scott, on me. Also, it will give you information on The Experience Local, which is our Monday show. This is our flagship show. Talks about the Waco experience that Scott has in Waco. So many great opportunities. And so go to local.theexperience.video today for more information. You can also join our our YouTube page, or just go directly to theexperience.video and you can subscribe to our YouTube page. We would love for you to do that. It's growing and we're blessed and so thankful that you can be part of that page as well. So, Scott, what else do you got going on this week?
You know, it's just been fun. Last week, I was at Startup Waco, sat in for their startup weekend. And I've been to those before. Usually I do, not at a Startup Waco, but the startup weekend. And I've gone as an advisor. This time I decided to go as a camper and had pulled out an idea that I've had for a while and partnered up with a college student from the McLennan Community College here. And we actually won. We won the competition. And so that was a lot of fun just to work with her. 18 years old. She is a TikTok, over 10,000 followers.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, congratulations. That's great that you guys have won that and were able to, that's just amazing. So I'm just very proud of my friend Scott. Good job. Well, listen, I've got great things going on this week. It's been an awesome week already. And, there's so many opportunities and I'm just thankful each week to be able to share with all of you. And I think that right now, because Bob has got so much great content, I think we need to jump in and just bring Bob in and get the show started. What do you think, Scott?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Good morning, Bob. How you doing?
Hello, Russ. Hello, Scott. Always great to be with the two of you.
Great to hang out with you, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob, we are so thankful that you bless us with your time. And I learn so much every time you're on. I love what you're all about. Just give everybody who doesn't know you, which is maybe one person in the universe, just a little snippet on who is Bob and what are you up to?
Really just a former broadcaster turned news, turned salesperson, sales professional, student of the game of sales and personal development, and been very fortunate over the last 35 years or so to be able to teach and speak on those things that I continue to learn. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, that is so great.
And last
Scott,
time, Bob, when you're on this, on last time when you're here, we talked about you're giving a lot of keynote speeches, a lot of presentations, but you're doing them all from your office there.
Yeah.
You're not out on the road traveling.
No. At age 67, I just decided it was time to not be on airplanes anymore or stay in any hotels. So I love doing keynote presentations. I just love doing them from what I call Burg International Headquarters, aka my spare bedroom.
And you don't even need to worry about real ID.
Yes, exactly. I know who I am, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, Scott, I got to get my real ID here. So I have that so I can fly. But yeah, Bob, I just love what you're all about. And Scott, had thrown out a couple things because we've covered so much in the last time or two we've talked that we really like to have you adventure into some new areas we haven't talked about today. So Scott, do you want to intro that again?
So, Bob, you've written a number of books, and one of them that just caught my attention in today's world is this art of persuasion, winning without intimidation. And I would just like to get I'd just like to open up your brain and hear what you were thinking when you put that together and why it's so important, because it is.
Yeah, well, thank you. Really, when you think about it, it's all about people skills. It really comes down to that, and it really seems as though the big differentiator between those who are relatively successful, very very legitimately successful, those who attain a real good level of success, and those who attain that real dramatic stratospheric level of success is how they relate to people, how they relate to others. That certainly, again, doesn't mean that talent is not important. Talent's very important. Expertise, capabilities, very important. Technical skills, knowledge, all of that is very important. But in today's world, that has really become simply the baseline, right? That's what gets you into the game and allows you to play. And again, you can reach a certain level of success just through those talents. But Marshall Goldsmith years ago wrote I loved his book, and I love the title of his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? And I think of that when it comes to this, because you can get to that certain level through your talent and hard work and all those great things. But in order to really, really make it big, to get right, you've got to be able to deal with people, and you've got to be able to do it in a way that's effective, in a way that causes people to buy into your ideas as opposed to reject your ideas, right? And do it in such a way, and this is what I call genuine influence, which is being able to attain the results you want when dealing with others while making them feel genuinely good about themselves, about the situation, and about you. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, I love that, Bob, because, you're right. The baseline of having good skills, good value, excellence, and all of that, there's a lot of that. And that's really what just gets you into the game to start
Right.
with. But what makes you different? What makes you stand out, and
Yeah.
how you deal with people is
Right.
really what it's all about, right? I mean, the way that you're actually pulling them in through your influence makes all the difference.
Exactly. And we can influence, and so let's go, because I talked about genuine influence, but let's even go back to just the word influence, because we hear that word a lot. And I'm not talking about TikTok and Instagram, where you have the influencers who, I mean, that's fine, that's wonderful, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people in our world who are non-celebrities and so forth. And how do we influence? So we've got to ask the question, what is influence? What does that really mean? And I would say that on a very, very basic level, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. Okay, by definition, that is influence. Now, that's the definition, but as my co-author of The Go-Giver, John, and the different books in the series, John David Mann, likes to say, that's not the substance of influence, right? Or we could say the essence of influence. The essence of this substance or essence of influence is pull. Pull as opposed to push. We've all heard the saying, how far can you push a rope? And the answer is
Right.
not very, at least not very fast, right? Or very effectively, right? Which is why great influencers, genuine influencers, don't push. You never hear people say, wow, that Tom or that Mary, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people.
Mm.
No, she's very influential. She has a lot of
Pull.
pull with
Absolutely.
people, right? So how does that pull? What's pull? It's an attraction, right? How does that we attract people first to our idea, first to ourselves, excuse me, and then to our ideas? So how does this pull manifest itself? Well, it begins with the influencer having their focus in the right direction. Now, we should be, of course, internally motivated, but outwardly focused. Understanding, as Dale Carnegie taught us in his 1936 classic, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. That's just human nature. And, successful people live in reality, right? We understand the laws of nature, physical nature, human nature, economic nature, right? And so forth. So, and we don't let that stop us, but we utilize that, and we accept it, we embrace it, and then we go and work with it. Right, work in alignment with the laws. So you're outwardly focused, which means this, that you're always asking yourself, how does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their needs, their wants, their desires, with their values? How does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it solve a problem for them? How does it move them closer to happiness? And when we approach it and we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another person into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment, as opposed to trying to depend on some type of compliance, which is push, right? Which is manipulation, which is threats, which is, this or that. People don't buy into those. And not that a threat or intimidation can't work for a little bit of time. I mean, it can, but it's not very sustainable. And it's often going to cause that person not only to resist doing everything they can, but they could sabotage the situation itself at their earliest convenience. So when we ask ourselves those questions like that, we really elicit buy-in. One of my great friends and mentors, her name is Dondi Scumaci. She speaks on leadership. She leads teams of major companies all over the world. She says when it comes to leadership, when it comes to compliance, or when it comes to influence, rather, she says compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
Right.
And I just think that is so wonderful. So we begin with that, with really understanding influence, its substance or essence, that it's pull, that it's focusing on the other person. And then we add genuine influence to that, which is the ability to do so in a way that not only does that other person attain the results they want while we attain the results we want, right? It's got to be win-win. It's got to be everybody's gains, but they feel good about themselves. And as they do, they feel good about you and they feel good about the situation.
This is feeling good about themselves. This is, I use that title, motivational listener. And people ask me, Scott,
right. I love that. Love that.
Thank you. And people ask, what does that mean? And I said, the essence of being a motivational listener is as if Bob Burg and I are having a conversation, and my goal as the motivational listener for you, Bob, to leave our conversation feeling better about yourself than before we entered that conversation. And you also talked about leading teams and kind of the, what's in it for them, finding that thing. Persuasion. I took speech in college, had to take the persuasive speech class. Russ was a communications major, so I know he had to do that as well. In the persuasion class, right, in that speech class, we learned lay out a logical argument, take people from A to B along the path, and then you will persuade them. But what I have found, and having been a people manager for most of my career, was that there are differences of opinions that are based on emotion and based on intellect. And if I'm just addressing an intellect, I can lay out that argument and you go, oh, okay, I can see the path. But if it's an opinion of emotion, how do we actually persuade somebody?
Well, one of the things, the most important thing of all, is we've got to find out what it is that they want. Harry Brown, who wrote a magnificent book called The Secret of Selling Anything. And really it was a wonderful treatise on understanding human nature. And one of the things Harry said, and by the way, the secret to selling anything, just so you know, the secret to selling anything, according to Harry, is find out what the other person wants and help them get it. That's the big secret. Of course, he says the big secret needs not be a secret, right?
Yeah. Well, that's like my investment professor in college said. One of the students asked him, "How do you make money in the stock market?" This is buy low and sell high, and you can quote me on that.
Right. How do you lose weight? Well, eat less, exercise more, right? There's certain things that are fairly, we try to complicate them and they're not that complicated. But one of the things is, Harry used to say is, salespeople were always asking him, well, how do I motivate this person to buy? And Harry said, you don't have to. They're already motivated to buy. Your job is to simply find out what motivates them. What are they motivated to buy? Find that out. Now you've got a buyer, right? So the first thing is we need to discover, and this is why in a one-on-one conversation, and my great friend and colleague, Jeff West, he and I, he was a magnificent salesperson, sales leader for many, many years. He was one of the tops in the world with Aflac, and now he teaches, and he and I wrote Streetwise to Saleswise, our newest sales parable, become objection proof and beat the sales blues. And, Jeff and I he and I can talk about sales for hours. And one of the things we very much agree on is the most important element of the sales conversation. And by the way, we never, ever use the word pitch. In our world, there is no such thing as a sales pitch. I wish, and I would, and I've written about this for years. No one's listening. Hey, there's Mike Asherbrenner. He's one of the greatest guys ever. And so, what is a pitch? Well, a pitch in baseball is something you do to strike the other person out, not to help them. So why would you do a sales pitch? Are we trying to hurt that other person? So, and even presentation, that's better. But even a presentation says it's you doing the presenting and they're doing the listening. A sales conversation says, no. Sales conversation says you and the other you and your prospect are partners in determining what they need, want, desire, their challenges, and how you can help them. And so, Jeff and I believe the most important part of, and Harry Brown said this too, the most important part of a sales conversation is the discovery. This is where you're discovering their needs, their wants, their desire, all the different things that are going to help you to help them, right? And so in a sales conversation, that's how you do it. Now, what about in a speech or that would be a presentation. It is you speaking to 500 or 5,000 or 50 or whatever. Well, if you don't have an opportunity to ask questions and do exchange during the presentation, you've got to find out as much beforehand about that audience. Right? About the, if they're all in the same industry, you find out what are the industry challenges, right? You find out what are right. So you do as much research as you can to really know what that audience is looking for. And because the only way you're going to persuade them is to share the information that they believe is of value. What is value? It's the relative worth. So it's always relative, right? It's a relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something to the end user or beholder.
Yeah. I love the whole concept. There's this great book called The Go Giver. I don't know if you've heard of this Bob Burg guy, but the whole idea,
ring a bell.
I know it's vaguely familiar, but it's the whole idea of giving them what they want instead of trying to create something in them they don't want. When I love what you're talking about, the pull versus push. When we are pushing and pitching and throwing, people get on LinkedIn and send me a message and say, "Hey, sorry about the pitch." And I said, "Well, then ditch the pitch. Don't pitch me the first thing, I mean, come on, because that's not what we're here for to begin with anyway. Do you want to know who I am? Maybe I don't need your pitch, right? But I love the whole idea of you will always draw people in if you have what they want. And Scott always talks about what is the problem we're trying to solve. If people are dealing with a problem or a situation and you're able to come in with solutions, that's instantly going to draw them in, right, Bob?
That's it. I mean, that's what, one of my great friends, Randy Gage, says, you don't have a sales problem, you have a value problem. Right. If you find a way to provide value to another person, you won't have a problem with sales. Yeah. Solving problems is a way of adding value, giving something they want or need, whatever. That's adding value. So, it's all about that. And we can only know what they value by discovering it, by asking questions and then listening. And of course, Scott, when he calls himself a motivational listener, I mean, it's so wonderful. We've all had that fear that we've all had it happen at one time in our lives, maybe even if just once, when we were in a conversation with someone who let us do all the talking, right? And then we came away from that conversation saying to ourselves, wow, what a fascinating conversationalist that person is, right? I mean, and it's, it's the same. And I may have said this last time we were discussing, I'm not sure, but, when I first got into sales and I was doing a lot of telephone prospecting and not, it was the whole thing on the phone. It was the prospecting. It was the creating relationships. It was closing. It was getting referrals, the whole thing. One of the things I learned right away was that nobody ever hung up the phone on me while they were talking. Right? I mean, it was amazing. If I'm talking about myself, my company, how long we've been in business, the great product, blah, 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 they're not interested. But if they're talking about themselves and what they enjoy, they're with us. They're totally engaged.
Right.
Hey, yeah, that process with the motivational listener. I actually was at a networking event and was talking to this lady, and she owns a framing shop, and she got into, and she also did art restoration. And as I was talking to her, I asked her about the art restoration because I just know that that's a particular skill set. And how did she get involved in that? Exactly. And she talked about her brother, who was an artist and an inspiration for her. But there's those micro expressions, right? When we have when you're using your emotional intelligence. And there was this wave of sadness that just quickly passed over her face. And I found out her brother died at 53 from smoking and the solvents in the paint, but he had sold paintings for tens of thousands of dollars. So he was a good artist.
Yeah.
As we're having this conversation, she actually, and this is like a 2-minute conversation. A friend of hers is passing by. She reaches out, grabs him by the arm, and says, "You have to talk to this interesting man." Right?
Yeah.
And she knew my name. that was how interesting anyway. I love what you're saying in that, Bob.
Perfect example, Scott.
So go ahead, Russ, because I know we're going to have to start winding down and
yes,
let Bob,
unfortunately the time goes flying on by. And Bob, I want to give you another opportunity. We love, you're full of so much wisdom and so many gold nuggets, but give us what you really want people to remember from today's conversation, the gold nugget of the day, and then remind people how they get in touch with you, because as we wrap up, we want to make sure that people can reach out to you, and we just appreciate you so much. So go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I mean, again, I think it comes down to really being, going back to being internally motivated, but outwardly focused, understanding that it's all about them. As far as they're concerned, they are the most important person in the world, right? And so is everyone else. It's just human nature. And we always want to, when we communicate, we always want to make sure to do so with tact and empathy. You know, we want to make sure that we respect people, that we show people, well, I mean, I guess it goes back to respect and treating them and seeing them as a human being whose life we can add value to, as opposed to somebody who we're going to have, who's there just to do something for us. And I think when we do that, we're always on the right track. I welcome people to contact me at Burg, BURG.com. They can subscribe to my daily impact email if they like, which we send out Monday through Friday.
Yeah, and I tell you, all the information is right there. People can click on it, go straight to Bob. And man, I highly, highly recommend that, everybody. Get in touch with Bob today. Subscribe to his website, get his information. It's so amazing. And go out and buy his books. Amazing, amazing stuff. So Bob, we appreciate you as always. We're going to say goodbye for today, but hang tight in the green room for just a minute. We'll see you on the other side.
Good to see you again, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Wow. I tell you, I love that guy. He's got so much great information. We could do weekly shows with him.
Yeah. I was just thinking, this is, we're coming up to the graduation season. A lot of students will be entering out into the workforce. And I just encourage you, if you've got a college graduate or a high school graduate, even in your life, just go on to Amazon. And the nice thing is you can just put their name and address and mail Go Giver or The Art of Persuasion. And I actually am leaning toward The Art of Persuasion because when you are entering the workforce, you probably haven't been taught these soft skills. You haven't been able to practice them. Well, send the book to them and then go back and quiz that person.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know what? When you're young is the time to learn too, right? Get these skills. So much stuff that we have learned over our lifetime, Scott. We wish, at least I know I do, wish I would have known years ago certain things, right? I mean, I wouldn't change my life for a moment, but it would have been nice to have a few of these nuggets when I was a little younger.
Absolutely. And that's leverage other people's learnings. And, but as the student, you probably don't have, you just don't know, right? You don't know Bob's books and so forth. Right. So that's our responsibility as the mentors for the next generation.
For sure. For sure. Well, listen, everybody, we are so glad that you made it today. Please share this out. Even if you're watching on replay, which a ton of you are, I know, put hashtag Team Replay, say hi to us, say hi to Bob. You can still connect with Bob or connect with us. Even when you're watching on replay, you can still tag your friends and tell them, listen, I know you missed Bob, but this is great information. A really, really good way to do that is subscribe to our YouTube page, which would be so, so great. You can go to the experience.video directly to subscribe to our YouTube page, and you get all of Bob's episodes along with other great, amazing people. Or for full information on us, go to local.theexperience.video. More information on Scott and I, all of our experience shows, and we would appreciate that so much. And Scott, what are your last words for everybody today?
Go be a go-giver.
Well, that's good. Pretty simple too. All right. Well, with that, it's been great to see you all. Have a blessed and amazing rest of your week. We want to end with a little joy for today.
There you go.
There you go. Kermie says goodbye too. So, all right, everybody. See you next Wednesday, 7 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Texas Standard Time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to The Experience live with Russ and Scott. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or subscribe on YouTube. See you next time.